All right. Hey, welcome everyone to Unpack This. For those of you who have been following me, we are in season 3, Becoming. For those of you are new, we have this is our 3rd episode of a women's series, and we're going to start with in season 3, episode 1. Who are you without survival mode? That's right. Who are you without survival mode? So again, welcome back to Unpack This. I am Gloria Bailey-Ray, your host, the Authentic Coach. And if you have been with me, as I said, since season 1, then you know that you are in for a treat, right? So season 1, just a little recap. Season 1 was the awakening. It was the moment that many women finally admitted, you know what, this hurts. This is unhealthy. This is exhausting. This relationship is costing me. This version of myself is disappearing. So season 1 cracked open awareness. Then came season 2. And season 2 was about the unlearning. And let me just tell you, unlearning can feel like, I guess a good word would be emotional surgery, because it requires you to question everything you normalize, everything you tolerated, everything you survived, and sometimes everything you built your identity around. But season 3, oh baby, season 3 is different. Season 3 is not about surviving. Not anymore. It's about becoming. Not shrinking, not proving, not fixing everybody else, not carrying everyone else. It's about not abandoning yourself to keep peace. So becoming essentially, and I believe one of the hardest questions a woman will ever have to answer is this: who are you? Who are you when survival is no longer your identity? I ask that question because many women do not actually know. We know how to survive. We know how to overfunction. We know how to save everybody. We know how to push through pain, how to suppress exhaustion. We know how to smile when emotionally drowning. But peace, rest, softness, stillness, receiving, trusting, being cared for, that can feel foreign, sometimes even unsafe. I want to be honest with you and share that there were seasons in my own life where survival became my personality. I wore strength like it was this badge of armor, right? People praised me for always handling things, always showing up, always carrying responsibility and pushing through. And what people often do not understand is this, that strong women are often rewarded for self-neglect. I mean, just let that sit on your shoulders for a minute. You see, society celebrates women who sacrifice themselves. They sacrifice the the woman who never rests, the woman who never complains, the woman who keeps producing no matter how tired she is. And after a while, you don't even realize you're surviving anymore. You just think, this is who I am. Let me tell you, survival mode, it changes you. It changes you mentally. It changes you emotionally. For many of us, it changes you physically and also spiritually. See, according to the American Psychological Association, chronic stress can significantly impact memory, emotional regulation, sleep, immune function, and even cardiovascular health. And some of you are wondering why certain things are happening. And I, too, fell into that category with several of those health issues. And I want to tell you that Black women in particular, uh, we experience disproportionately high levels of chronic stress due to caregiving burdens, workplace pressure, financial stressors, and then there's the systemic inequities. So let me translate that for you. Many women have normalized functioning in a constant state of emotional emergency. And when that becomes normal, peace can actually feel uncomfortable. Some women sabotage their own peace because chaos feels familiar. There are some women that stay in exhausting relationships because struggle feels familiar. And then there are some women overwork because productivity became tied to worthiness, I should say, worthiness. And some women don't know how to just sit still because stillness forces them to finally hear themselves. And that part right there is where becoming begins, because becoming requires space, ladies. You cannot hear yourself clearly while constantly surviving. Okay? So think about this. What I said. When you are becoming, it requires space. And you know what? And I had to recognize this. You cannot hear yourself clearly, while constantly surviving. Because that's I know that that's what I was doing. And I know that there are many of you out there doing the same thing. See, I remember reaching moments in my life where I realized, dang, I was tired. And it wasn't a sleepy tired, it was a soul tired, right? I was tired of over explaining, tired of carrying emotional labor, tired of being just the strong one. I was so tired. I was sick and tired of being tired, of fixing, surviving. And what shocked me was realizing that I did not fully know who I was outside of responsibility. Imagine that. And I have to tell you, having that realization is humbling because survival mode often forces women to become who they needed instead of who they truly are. Research from Harvard Health Publishing has shown that chronic stress keeps the nervous system, now get this, keeps the nervous system activated. Wow. Wow. Think about that. That means many women, they're not living, they're just reacting. Reacting to pressure, to fear, abandonment, to instability, reacting to emotional unpredictability. And eventually the body starts keeping score. So you want to know what's happening? High blood pressure, anxiety, insomnia, emotional numbness, burnout, exhaustion. Hey, are any of these calling your name? Does it have your name on it? Listen, I know mine was on all of those. The body eventually says, I cannot keep surviving like this. Nope, not happening. And maybe that's where some of you are right now. You're functioning, but you are exhausted. You find yourself, you're smiling, but you are emotionally depleted. You're productive, but you are disconnected from your own self. And just maybe this season, this becoming season is your invitation to finally ask, what do I actually want? What do I actually need? Who am I becoming now? One of the hardest parts of healing is grieving the version of yourself that survival created. Because survival, you probably, you accomplish a lot, but you protected, well, you protected you. You got things done. Yeah. Okay. You carried people. You endured impossible situations. But guess what? Along the way, you may have also abandoned yourself. And you did it repeatedly. And now what's happening? You are being asked to evolve. And that evolution, I keep saying this, it can feel scary because becoming often requires different boundaries, different relationships. Get this, ladies. Requires different conversations, different standards for sure, but also just different environments. And you cannot become fully while staying committed to versions of yourself that were built only to survive pain, right? Listen, from a personal perspective, I know what it's like to evolve publicly. I know what it's like to outgrow spaces. I certainly know what it feels like to outgrow dynamics, emotional patterns. And one thing I have learned is this: growth will often make people uncomfortable who benefited from your exhaustion. Whereas we may not want to admit it, but the truth be told, some people actually liked you better when you were depleted, when you were over available, when you self sacrificed. They liked you better when you were quiet and small. But becoming requires visibility, and visibility requires courage. I'll let that sit there for a second. And why do I say that? Listen, there is a version of you that's trying to emerge, a softer version, a more rested version, a more discerning version, and a more aligned version. But she cannot emerge if survival keeps driving your life. So, what does becoming actually require? And that's a great question we should all be asking. First, it requires self-awareness. You have to notice where survival is still operating in your life. And you can start with asking this: do you constantly overfunction? Do you struggle receiving help? Do you feel guilty resting? Do you confuse struggle with love? How about, do you still fear disappointing people? Do you say yes when you really mean no? That awareness matters. Second, let's talk about boundaries. Becoming requires protecting your peace differently. And let me say this clearly: everybody does not deserve unlimited access to you. Every relationship should not drain you, and every opportunity is not aligned. The third thing in becoming has to do with self-trust. Men and women have spent years outsourcing their intuition, seeking permission, seeking validation, seeking approval. But becoming requires learning to trust yourself again, to trust your voice, trust your instinct, trust your wisdom, your discernment. That's what you got to trust. See, according to studies on emotional burnout, women are significantly more likely than men to experience emotional exhaustion related to caregiving, workplace expectations, and emotional labor. So that means men and women have been conditioned to prioritize everybody else's emotional experience above their own. And eventually, you disappear inside of that pattern. So this season, season 3, is about ending that cycle. I want women listening to understand something deeply. You are allowed to become someone new. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind. All right. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to stop proving yourself. And you are allowed to choose peace over performance. And you are allowed, let me say this really clearly, to stop auditioning for love. Woo. You, ladies, are allowed to become visible. You are allowed to finally, and I give that permission freely, finally choose yourself fully. Okay? And choosing yourself, I have to say it again and again, it is not selfish, it's necessary. Because the woman who constantly abandons herself eventually forgets who she is. But the woman who begins listening to herself again, she becomes powerful. Not loud, not arrogant, not performative, grounded, clear, aligned, free. Can I say that? Yes, yes, yes. So I think many women are entering seasons where survival simply no longer fits. That's not the norm anymore, ladies. And honestly, I know that that can feel terrifying because survival gave structure, even when it hurt. But becoming requires trust. Trust that peace does not mean laziness. Trust that boundaries do not make you mean. Trust that softness does not make you weak. Trust that rest is productive. And I need you to understand you have to trust that your life can hold more than struggle. And maybe for the first time, you are finally making room for yourself. Not the version everybody needed, the version you need. So I want you to sit with this particular question after today's episode. Who are you without survival mode? Not who pain made you become, right? Think about that. Sit with the fact that I want you to sit with who are you when you think about not who trauma, when you were dealing with trauma, who did trauma demand you be? Sit with not, who exhaustion forced you to become, right? Who are you when you finally have room to breathe? That question may change your life. Think about it, reflect on it, and be okay with just being okay. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of season 3 of Becoming. This season is going to be powerful because we're no longer just talking about healing. We're talking about becoming the woman we were always meant to be. I'm Gloria Bailey-Ray, and this is Unpack This, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of season 3, Becoming. Until then, be well, stay safe, and remember this: do not have to set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Peace and blessing. I'm Gloria Bailey-Ray. Be well.